Welcome to this instructional video of Healight, intended for patients positive for COVID-19 who are mechanically ventilated. In this video, we will go through the device components, we'll walk through the assembly of the device, we will go through the pre-procedural setup, as well as the treatment itself, and then finally removing the Healight catheter. Shown here is the device controller with the start button, the stop button, a power switch generally set to high power, as well as a clear button. Connectors for air and for electrical. Behind the controller, we have the desiccant. Beneath that is the water bottle, and then the air compressor with its on and off switch. The UV light catheter, when not in use, should be stored with a foam protector which is easily placed and removed for when the catheter needs to be in use. Here's the UV light catheter itself. Start at the proximal end at the tip. We can see that that tip is sealed. Inside the most distal 10 centimeters of the UV light catheter are the lights themselves, as well as markings for how deep the catheter is inserted. And then at the distal end, we have the air connectors as well as the electrical connector, which get connected to the umbilical. Here's the three-way multi-port connector, which can be connected to the ventilator as well as a respiratory catheter, and then the UV light catheter, each of which has its own port, and a swivel mechanism that can be used to engage either the respiratory catheter or the UV light catheter as needed. Shown here is connection of the respiratory catheter as well as the UV light catheter to two of those ports. Here's the umbilical shown in blue. At each end of the umbilical are two air ports as well as one electrical port, and these get connected to the device as well as to the controller. Prior to the procedure, check the volume settings and make sure that the patient is on volume control ventilation as well as 100% FiO2, which should be for at least 30 minutes prior to the procedure. If the patient is breathing on their own or they are not sedated or paralyzed, other control settings may be considered. In order to ensure the safety of the patient as well as the safety of the healthcare workers in the room, ideally we do not want to break the circuit of the COVID intubated patient. In addition, it is important to have in mind the proper sequencing of the device procedures in order for everything to go smoothly and allow the device to work as intended. We use the mnemonic ICU treat. I for insert. First, the UV light catheter is inserted into the endotracheal tube of the patient. Then C for clamp. The clamp is placed in order to maintain the insertion of the catheter into the endotracheal tube and that it not be moved or dislodged during the treatment part of the procedure. Then U for umbilical, and at this point, after insertion of the device and clamping of the device, only then is the umbilical connected to the UV light catheter in order to begin the treatment process. At this point, after the device has been inserted, clamped, and the umbilical connected, the treatment can occur by diverting attention at this point to the controller, which is now able to be turned on and warmed up for the procedure. Now we will go through the UV light treatment itself. What you can see here is the setup where the device is already attached to the multi-port catheter, and before using it, the foam protector is removed. In order to engage the device, now we have already sampled with the suction catheter, so we no longer need the suction catheter. The device is swiveled in order to engage the UV light catheter. The catheter is inserted all the way until the tip is sitting at the tip of the ET tube. There are two ways to determine that this is happening. Number one is to look and see if the numbers align with the numbering of the ET tube. And the second is to use the clamp that is provided in order to make sure that the device sits properly. Note that the clamp needs to be attached to the plastic piece at the distal end of the catheter in order to ensure that the device stays in place throughout the duration of the 20 minutes of light delivery. Once the device is into the patient, only then is the umbilical connected to the light catheter device. The air compressor could be turned on, followed by the controller, and then we wait. It takes approximately 2 minutes for the machine to warm up, and the information that's shown on the screen is that the system is initializing. Please select the high-powered mode and then press start. After approximately 2 minutes, the machine will then enter an additional 30-second warm-up prior to being able to deliver the beginning of the treatment. Once the treatment begins, the display will show treatment in progress, and then a countdown timer from 20 minutes will begin. After the 20 minutes of light treatment, the controller will automatically turn off the lights, and then a 30-second cool-down period will begin with the display showing cooling in progress. Once the treatment has been completed, the first thing to do is to remove the umbilical from the device connection. At that point, the clamp should first be removed, and then the device should be withdrawn from the endotracheal tube. Once the device is completely withdrawn, it can be swiveled back to position the respiratory catheter to be engaged for the duration of the next 24 hours until the device needs to be used again.